Se me piso that corn.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Little Podcast on the Prairie. Today we're going to talk about something that just about everybody loves.
The Great American Road Trip!
So I think everybody at some point in their life says, I just got to head out on the open road and see the country. We're heading up the country.
Yep, and I remember our biggest road trip of all. I think that was in 2018 or 19, one of those years. And we took a road trip across the entire country.
And we made t-shirts.
Yes.
For a road trip.
That's the most important tip, is to get matching gear before you head out.
Should we show them the t-shirt?
I don't know. You can go get it if you want to. But I was first going to talk about a good thing to get started on before you head on out down the road is to pick out a couple of areas that you're interested in visiting, like a couple of sites that you maybe always wanted to see but didn't quite have the time. I remember for me, it was the Biltmore in North Carolina. I always wanted to see
Norte de Carolina,
America's largest estate.
Sorry for the interruption, but they got to see our t-shirt.
Oh, it was in 2020. I was totally off on that one.
CNC's Road Trip 2020, and that SUV is kind of like the one we drove, and it was orange. So we made our shirts match our SUV.
Yep.
So there you go. So it made it a lot of fun, and people would often comment, oh, I like those shirts. And we'd be like, yeah, we're on the road trip right now.
Different places that I always wanted to see that we kind of put on our list as a maybe if we got close enough. So I saw the Biltmore, and what else did I always want to see? I think I just always wanted to see the eastern side of Oregon, to just head out past North Umpqua National Forest and just keep going past Crater Lake and just see what was out there out east. And it turns out it was Idaho.
But before you get to Idaho, what do you get to go over?
A harrowing pass.
The Cliffs of Death.
Insanity.
I call it the Cliffs of Death. Just before you leave Eastern Oregon, like if you go out that direction, you go through Lakeview, I believe it is, and then just keep going east. You come to these incredible cliffs. It's funny because you're driving up to it, and it's kind of a flat plain, and then all of a sudden in the distance, you see this rising up this mountain. And you get closer and closer, and pretty soon you're like, whoa, you're looking up at it, and the road goes right up the edge of the cliff, and the mountain is probably, I don't know, a couple thousand feet up. Probably 2,000-3,000 feet up.
It just rises up out of nowhere, and you don't really understand how steep it is until you're on it, and then you look out over the valley. You see the most incredible view ever.
Yeah, and the road is right along the edge of what's basically a straight cliff. It might have a slight angle, but if you go off the edge, that's it for you, brother. Brother.
So that was one of the unexpected sights that we saw along the way. What were some of your favorite sights that you planned to see along the way?
That I planned to see? Well, I don't think we really had much of a plan.
Well, we had a couple things we wanted to see, like Mount Rushmore. What were some of the places that you enjoyed seeing the most?
Well,
we'll just nix the planned. What were some of the unexpected places that you enjoyed seeing?
Yeah, because I don't remember having a plan. I kind of mapped out the route I wanted to take. It was really loose though, and we knew it was up for change. We didn't want to box ourselves in. Oh, you have to take this route. But we kind of knew we wanted to do a circle, so when we hit the East Coast, we would come back over the top. So we'd see different. The idea was to see as many new states as we could. That was a big thing for me, just exploring new states. And some of them weren't even that far away, like we discovered, and it's now one of our favorite little spots, is Ely, Nevada, right? And that was
neat.
I'd never even heard of it. And the reason we got there is because she wanted to travel for a while on
the loneliest road. There's several routes across the U.S. There's the famous Route 66, there's the I-80, there's the I-70, and then there's different routes that take you kind of meandering in the countryside, and the loneliest route, which I think was Highway 50, something like that, was one of them that I wanted to get on, at least for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't go the whole way there because we were under time constraints.
Yeah, and we just we stopped for the night in Ely, Nevada, and we were just going to stop and then take off the next day. That was just a quick stopping spot. But we realized it was a super cute town and there was stuff to do there. So we ended up staying an extra night and exploring the town, and it was really neat. They had just outside the town. Oh, they also had a railroad, which we missed because it was only certain days at this point. This was right during COVID too, so it was more limited. But they have a neat thing called the Garnet Hill, and you can find these little special garnet stones.
Yeah, and they're not even hard to find. You can
Yeah.
find them within like 5 minutes of getting there. Some locals told us about it. They said, "Hey, did you go to the Garnet Hill? You got to go to the Garnet Hill." And so we went there, and it was very, very hot. It was miserable hot. So we didn't stay there very long. But within like the maybe 15 minutes that we were there, we weren't there very long because it was so hot. But we found like a little handful of garnets.
Yeah, I mean, they're not just sitting out. You have to actually mine for them.
I know.
Like, what I did is I followed someone's tip of, I had a water bottle, and you just go around dumping it on, like, little rocky areas, and when the sand washes away, it will sometimes reveal these garnets, and so that's how I found mine. How did you find yours? Was it also with water?
They were just laying out there.
They were?
Really weren't hard to find at all. And another thing that I liked about it is you could take as many as you liked, and it was free to get in there.
Yeah, and they're beautiful little, were they kind of a bluish, or what color were they?
Red.
Red? Okay. Well, I don't remember.
You know, the opposite.
Oh, okay. I remember they were colorful, and they were really neat, and I found like a little set of like 5 or 6 of them all together. It was like they were all in the same little rock together. That was pretty cool.
So the takeaway from this is go ahead and be spontaneous. If the locals are telling you, oh, you got to see something, then go and see it along the way, you know, if you have time to do that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about some of our tips for having the best type of trip. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was GPS equipment. And tell us about the pros about our GPS equipment.
So we got us a little Garmin, and a lot of people think these are like, you know, obsolete because, oh, I got it in my cell phone. But trust me, when you're traveling coast to coast, there's gonna be spots where you do not have cell service,
right.
And this is gonna save your bacon. Plus, these are really cool. This one I think only cost like, I don't know, $100 or maybe a little more, a little less, and it has some really cool features. You can actually hook it up to the Bluetooth on your phone, and it'll tell you, like, it'll keep you up to date on the weather and stuff outside. But what we really liked is it shows, like, historic. It'll show you on the map as you're going. You'll see a little flag pop up, and it'll tell you, like, a historic site is coming.
Yeah, and you can press on it if you're the passenger, and it'll tell you a little blurb about the historic site if you want to read all about it, if you don't want to just visit it. And it also tells you when the speed changes automatically. It gives you a little ding,
that
which
is
really great to have. And so that kept me aware as well if I was driving, like where the next rest stop was and how many miles it's going to be. It like lists it out for you, like so many great features. So it's good. Like it's still viable to get GPS system instead of just relying on the cell phones. Yeah. And what's another thing that you can rely on beside your cell phone?
The Road Atlas.
Yeah, we use this guy a lot. You can tell because all the pages are
and
really
open it up.
beat up.
Let's show them. Open it up real quick. We want to just randomly. We want to show them why it's so awesome. Because when you're just
There's a little bit of yellow.
Yeah. So check this out. Sometimes it's really nice when you're driving to get a picture of the whole area, because when you're looking at it on your GPS device or on your cell phone, you're looking at a little screen. So you can zoom out a little bit, but there's nothing like looking at a huge page and seeing like all the roads and like all the little spots around the towns.
They'll have forests on here, so like which general like rivers and whatnot, like where you kind of want to head towards instead of. So it's good to pick out your final destination on your cell phone by using the atlas. Also, when your phone is out of commission, you can find out where you're at and where to get out of there.
So we would often, whoever was the passenger at the time, would often be kind of, while we were just on the open road, be scanning through the road atlas, finding like fun, neat things. And something that we did actually changed our lives. And I can't remember if that was from the GPS or the road atlas, but that was when we discovered North Platte, Nebraska, the Golden Spike Tower. And that changed our lives forever.
I think that was from the GPS because I think that was one of the historic sites on there
that popped
you
up.
saw.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, I want to see that.
Yeah, so we were driving and what we would often do if we had no specific thing we were aiming for, we would just drive until it was late and we were tired and then we'd look for a hotel. But I spotted this thing. Like I said, I think it was the GPS.
I gotta interrupt you. There's something else I didn't point out about the atlas is that you can mark out your route in marker, and it's fun to look back on it like maybe a year later or something.
Yeah, we tried to highlight all the routes we took with a highlighter, and then it was kind of cool because then we could say like, oh, this is the actual whole route that we took. And very cool.
Okay, but anyway.
So I saw this thing pop up and it said it was the Golden Spike Tower. So I read about it and it was this significant railroad thing. And the Golden Spike Tower, I can't remember what happened there. It was like where the two railroads met or something.
Well, it was kind of, maybe, but I just knew it as a lookout tower for the world's largest rail yard.
Yeah, I think what it was, because they supposedly they pounded a golden spike in. I think it was where the West Railroad met the East, and then that's where it finally connected. I could be wrong on this.
You're wrong on that
where
one.
It joined, big stretch of railroad.
It wasn't there.
Then why did they put a golden spike down?
I don't know. But that wasn't the spot.
There was something like that where two railroads joined.
Yeah, I remember it being like somewhere like in Utah
she thinks she knows everything.
Or someplace. I'm not sure. Let us know the right
in the comments
place
below
where the East and West rails met.
What I want to know in the comments below is why they put a golden spike at that point. Something significant happened there. But anyway...
They just put them all over the rail.
But anyway, there's a big tower that you can go up in and see. It's the biggest rail yard in America. And there's
Promontory
many...
No. Promontory Point?
Nobody cares. There's so many tracks, and there's constantly trains coming and going. So you just sit up there and you can watch the trains come and go all the time. And it's really neat. But here's the thing that what changed our lives, too. We didn't realize that Nebraska is actually in 2 different time zones. Yeah, it's not, the whole state is not in one time zone. So we saw this.
That was it. That changed our lives.
Yeah. So we saw this golden spike, and I was like, oh, I really want to see this. And it was, we'll say it was 6 o'clock, and it said it closed at 7. So I was like, oh, it's like a half an hour away. We can get there by 6:30. We can check it out real quick and then be back on the road. But we didn't realize that a few seconds later, we were going to go into a different time zone, or maybe we already had and just didn't know it yet. So when we arrived at the tower, it was closed, and we were like, what's going on? We couldn't figure it. The sign on the door had the hours or whatever, and we were like, well, we're within the hours. And then somehow we realized the time had changed on us. But now we were set on seeing this thing and going up in the tower. So we were like, well, let's stay the night in this town, North Platte. We knew nothing about it. But what did we discover in North Platte?
Cody Park. We went to Taco John's because that's not a chain that was out in the West. So we thought we'd try their version of Taco Bell, Taco John's. So we got the long johns, like the long tacos, and we took them to Cody Park. And we noticed that there was peacocks everywhere. And then we noticed that,
everywhere,
even better than peacocks, there was an ice cream stand open in the park. And then we noticed...
And what time was this ice cream stand open?
It was at like 9 p.m. It was awesome.
Yeah, because if you know anything about the Midwest, everything closes down early. But it was late in the evening. I think it actually said that it stayed open till 10. This was in the summertime. And so you can go to the park and get a soft serve ice cream. They had a little ice cream stand, but they sold other treats and stuff too.
So we walked around the park eating our ice cream after eating our Long Johns. And we noticed that they had a public zoo there with buffalo and
it was free.
We put two and two together and like, oh, Wild Bill, or what was his name?
Yeah,
his
Wild
name
Bill
wasn't
Cody.
Wild Bill. He wasn't Wild Bill. Wild Bill was the other guy.
No, there was two Wild Bills.
Oh, he was a Wild Bill as well?
Yeah, there was Wild Bill Cody and Wild Bill Hickok.
Buffalo Bill. His name
Buffalo
was Buffalo
Bill. Okay, Wild Buffalo.
Okay, so
it's all the same.
We're like, oh yeah, Cody Park. So then we read more about it, and it ended up being a park that he established, and the animals that were there were either remnants of, or maybe just
descendants of,
maybe of the animals that he used to have in his parades, because he used to have big parades down the North Platte Main Street, featuring all of his animals that he would use in the show: the buffaloes, the llamas, the deer. There was all these
exotic deer.
Really cool animals.
Yeah, like African deer and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really neat. And you could just walk around there for free. That really makes a big impression on us when we're on a road trip, when we find things that are neat that are free.
We love free.
Yes.
And that changed our lives. That's a whole other story, and we actually did a video on it. So you're going to have to check out some of our other podcasts. But it changed our lives because this town, we really kind of fell in love with it. And when we decided to leave Oregon, that's what made us want to move to the Midwest. Kind of that town had kind of opened our eyes to, the possibility of living in the Midwest.
Yeah,
even though we didn't end up moving there.
This life is pleasant.
Yeah, we did try. We looked at houses. Anyway, that's a whole other show. You got to watch it on our other podcast. This is about the road trip. So back to the road trip.
So we got down what equipment you need in the car. So we got that down. What kind of car do you need?
A comfy car.
That's right.
Specifically, you need a Dodge Journey.
Yeah, that is the best travel vehicle in the world. Scotty Kilmore, is that his name? Kilmer. He says only stupid people buy this vehicle, and we're stupid because we bought it and we loved it. We looked at the customer reviews. Maybe the professional reviewers will say, it's got its problems, it's not that great. But the customers' reviews were off the charts. So we thought, this will be a good one to get.
And a good friend of ours, the Tanis family, they have one now, and they love theirs. They've had it for a long time. We actually only had ours for about a year. It was cool because if you remember during COVID, what happened to used car prices? They shot up. So we actually took this thing on a coast-to-coast road trip, drove it at home for a whole year, and then we sold it for $1,000 more than we bought it from.
Yeah, it was
and that
great.
was even to a dealer.
Yeah, and we still miss it today. It's been a few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, part of the reason we sold it is because we moved to Kansas and discovered that Kansas has a really high vehicle tax. And if you have a newer model vehicle that's within like the last 5 years, they hit you hard. It's like $1,000 or more if your vehicle's more high end. It's based on the price of your the value of your vehicle. And I was like, I'm not paying $1,000 every year to this, to Kansas to drive this. So we ended up selling it. and buying an older SUV, a Toyota Highlander.
And something that it had in it that we really enjoyed having on a coast-to-coast road trip was that satellite radio. It had free satellite radio for a couple months if you buy the vehicle. And we used that so often because a lot of times you couldn't get the radio stations.
Yeah, plus if you're driving across the country, any radio station's only going to come in for maybe 20, 30 minutes max. And then it's going to go out when you leave the area. So
yeah, it's just not as much fun. They
nice
had like the comedy channel. We had fun listening to that, and they had different political radio stations and music that you wouldn't hear really anywhere else. They had alternative music stations that we loved, and we still attribute some of those songs to our road trip. Like every time we hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, that vehicle, the Dodge Journey, was just the best.
But make sure, if you don't get a Dodge Journey, that's okay, but make sure it's a comfy vehicle, because if you're doing a coast-to-coast road trip, you're going to be in that car at least 2 weeks. We were there, our trip lasted almost a month. You can't do this in less than 2 weeks, and even in 2 weeks, you're not going to really have time to see anything. So if you're going coast-to-coast, I would recommend a month. That's a pretty good time where you're about ready to get home by the time it's done, but you've had enough time to see and take in a lot of the experiences.
And speaking of being comfy in the car, you want to make sure that you have these special seat cushions that avoid any problems with your seat.
Yeah.
For sitting for long periods of time.
Yeah, nice to have a comfy cushion.
Yes.
And then another tip, we recommend, as much as possible, this is what we did, as much as possible, we stayed off the major freeways. And that was one of the best things I can recommend, because you really get to see so much. When you're on a freeway, the scenery doesn't change a whole lot from place to place. You're just seeing like the little McDonald's along the exits and all that. But you're flying right through. A lot of the Midwest towns especially are not on freeways. They're like a few miles north or south of the freeway. So you skip like all of these adorable little towns, but by staying on the highways, you hit like all these really cute little towns, and that's where you find some real gems and like neat restaurants and like mom and pop restaurants and just
really
unique things, little flea marts and antique stores. And,
we found the world's best antique mall in Indiana.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They had a giant one. And that was all because we were driving on back highways. If there's occasions where we took freeways because sometimes there's just not a viable highway to get from A to B. But as much as you can, stick to the back roads.
And something else that we really utilized on our vehicle, because we would come across like the world's best antique malls, is we brought along a travel carrier.
Yeah.
And we could stick on stickers from different places that we had been to, which was also fun.
Right.
But it really freed up a lot of space inside so that we could travel comfortable, not be crowded with a bunch of junk inside of the car.
Yeah. Yeah, that was super handy. Definitely, if you can take a top carrier. Plus, there was a time or two when we needed to take naps in our car. And if our car was full of our bags, it would have been a pain, but because all of our stuff was up top, we could just lower the Dodge Journey has a back seat that lays flat, so you can actually get in the back and fully stretch out. Fortunately, we only had to spend one night in the back, which was pretty miserable because at our age, it's not as easy as it used to be.
We thought we were going to do that like nearly every single night, but the prices for hotels during our trip were so cheap that we just thought let's just stay in a hotel.
Yeah, and we're going to give you a tip in a minute about getting good prices on hotels. But there were other times on the trip where we needed to take a nap. So it's just so handy not having the car filled with your stuff, having it up top, so you can just quickly throw back the seats and catch an hour nap or whatever.
So tell us all about how to get these wonderful hotels.
So what we recommend is get this on your phone, the Priceline app. We have been using that for years, and it has been so handy. And give them a couple tips on how to use the Priceline app.
Okay, so you want to book your hotel at 11 p.m., before...
Well, if you're night owls like us, you can book it earlier.
Yeah.
But tell them why you don't want to book it later than that.
Because then that'll count for check-in the next day if you hit midnight. So you don't want to do that because that could cause some problems.
Yeah, you literally can't check in after midnight.
Right.
You can't book a stay on this app. You could drive to the motel, but why do they book on the app?
Because you get fantastic deals.
You get better deals than you'll get at the hotel.
And it's better than just looking for a hotel. It's better to book it on the app because of the customer reviews. Not for, like, the standard hotel rating reviews. Like, don't pay attention to that if it's a 2-star or 3-star. Like, don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to if the customer reviews are an 8 or above. Because if you go below an 8... to save money, well, you get what you paid for because, we stayed at some places that we actually ended up leaving because they were so disgusting. So be sure and look for an 8+, and then you'll be guaranteed a great stay.
Right.
Yeah, the customer reviews are very reliable on the Priceline. We also support Priceline over the Expedia, like
or just other apps.
Yeah, what different things, like Hotels.com, anything that's associated...
Don't tell them their name.
Anything that's associated with the Expedia group, we do not support because they are strong proponents of Planned Parenthood. So we don't want to support any of that. But the Priceline group does not support it. Like Bookings.com does not support that.
We are not fans of, in the words of Chris Rock, killing babiis.
Yeah, not a good fan of that.
No, absolutely. And so just remember 8.0 review or above, and book by 11.
Yeah,
and
before midnight.
The cool thing also about using the Priceline app is you can actually open a map on your phone, and it'll show you where you're at and all the areas around, so you can kind of look and see. It'll show you the different hotels near you. So you can kind of scroll down the road to where you're headed and say, like, oh, okay, there's some different ones. So you can find them by area, too.
Yeah, so you can plan ahead. Like, if Craig will say, oh, I really want to drive for another hour or so then we can just plan ahead. And so speaking of, we didn't really mention this earlier, but we like to have lots of room in our vehicle while we're traveling, and we also recommend that you pack light when you're traveling too, because you do get every once in a while you do get opportunities to do laundry, and so it's better to have less clothes or just buy clothes as you go along. I mean, you can buy inexpensive clothing.
Don't forget my favorite thing, disposable clothes. I got this from a travel magazine, and it changed my life. So what you do is before your road trip, and I'm always doing this, like if you're going to throw some clothes out, like, your shirt's got paint on it and you're going to throw it away, or your socks are about to get a hole in them, what you do is you throw these old clothes, instead of throwing them away, throw them in a bag, stuff them in the back of the closet, and then when you go on a road trip, you take your disposable clothes. So what you do is you wear it a time or two, and then you throw it away. Or actually what I do is I often just leave them, especially if it's like a t-shirt, or I don't do this. My old socks and underwear, I throw them away. But if it's like a t-shirt or some shorts or something that I was going to get rid of, I'll leave them on the hotel bed because I figure maybe the cleaning people can use them. They can, keep them and wash them. But if they don't want them, they can throw them away, certainly. But I love that because the longer you go on the trip, the lighter and lighter your suitcase gets. And it makes more room for, like, buying souvenirs or buying maybe some new T-shirt here and there. You got to buy an occasional tourist type souvenir T-shirt.
Of course.
Wall drugs. And that's the other thing on your road trip. You got to go to Wall Drugs.
Yeah, that was great.
If you're anywhere near the Dakotas.
It has all these billboards. We weren't going to go, but we're open to suggestion. So there was all these billboards on the way to Mount Rushmore talking about Walgreens and talking about 5-cent coffee, talking about homemade donuts, talking about like all these gift shops, talking about, oh, you got to stop at Walgreens pharmacy. And
Walgreens?
Or Well-Drug pharmacy.
That's the name which we do not speak of.
And so we did stop there, and it was like a whole mall full of all these different shops. And in the middle of it is this old ancient pharmacy that started it all. But they really
it's still functional.
They really do have the 5-cent coffee. You just put it in there as the honor system and take your cup of coffee. And their homemade donuts are so divine. Yeah, so definitely worth a stop. Like, take advantage of the tourist traps. They're fun. You know, it makes the whole trip like really interesting. You might discover something that you didn't plan on seeing, or you think is hokey, but you actually really enjoyed the experience. So to kind of recap, our final point actually is to just don't worry if things don't go as planned. You know, just to enjoy the time that you have together, and you know, if life takes you off in a different direction, you know, just go with it.
Or if your wife gets out of the car and says she's gonna fly home because she's sick of your crap. Just roll with it.
That couldn't happen. Yeah, just roll with it. That happens in life, you know.
But we love the part about being spontaneous. That's why we did not set out with a specific plan of like where we were going to go, because it's fun. That way the person that's the passenger at the time gets to kind of look ahead and find like where you're going to go next. So you just, you know, we headed out from Oregon, so we're heading east, so we, you know, drive till we were tired, stay, and then the next day we're driving without any idea where we're going, and the passenger would just look and go, oh, here's this historic thing here, or here's such and such, oh, let's go there, and so we'd go there. That's the most fun, is keeping it spontaneous, and because if you're...
But like, with a goal of some things that you always want to see.
Yeah.
So not that spontaneous.
Yeah, it's always nice if you have certain things, so you can mark out on your map, like, I do want to stop here and there, but in the meantime, all the in-between places, be spontaneous with it, and you never know what you're going to discover, and it's good to be flexible with your time. Like, if you book your hotels in advance, like, let's say we had booked a hotel, you know, in the Midwest, and we were just going through Ely, Nevada, and we might not have stopped because, oh no, we're on a time crunch. But the fact that we didn't book anything in advance, that gives us the pleasure of getting to stay in a fun place. Like, oh, let's stay an extra day here and enjoy it. Great. And we did that at several places. And also, you might find places that you thought were going to be awesome, and you get there and they suck.
Yeah, so you're not stuck there.
You're not stuck. Yeah, jump in your car and head on down the road. Find something cool.
Yeah. Okay, so to recap, have like a couple places in mind that you're interested in seeing. If you don't see them, fine, but you know, just like have a general goal of where you want to get to. GPS equipment, have an atlas in hand, have a comfortable vehicle, maybe a travel carrier, pack light, and just go with the flow. So we talked about all of our travel trip tips. So what was your favorite part about the trip?
Oh man, it's hard to narrow it down to just one thing. I just love discovering all the new places that I had never seen or been to. We both really loved the Outer Banks in
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah, and that's actually funny because a good friend of ours who was our neighbor was taking care of our house, and then she said, like, oh, you guys are heading into North Carolina, because we were kind of keeping in touch with her through text and stuff. And when she found out we were heading toward North Carolina, she said, oh, you're going to go see the Outer Banks, right? And we were like, what are the Outer Banks? This was before the TV show came out, which we don't watch, but now everybody knows because there's a TV show called The Outer Banks.
I never heard of that.
I've just seen ads for it. And we were like, what is that? We looked it up and we're like, oh, that's where Kitty Hawk is. And it's this whole little chain of islands off North Carolina.
I didn't know that. He surprised me.
Yeah. And, oh yeah, I didn't tell you we were going to Kitty Hawk, right?
Right.
And that was one of your favorite stops.
Yeah.
Right. And it's this whole chain of islands, and they're all connected by these massive bridges, like miles-long bridges, like crazy. And that was like an exciting thing to discover. I really enjoyed that. And then, yeah, Kitty Hawk was like, woo, awesome. Yep. And then, of course, when we reached the Outer Banks, you know, it was a coast-to-coast road trip, so we had to dip our toes in the Atlantic. It was actually cold at this point. It was a cold day. It was probably like 50 degrees or something. It was overcast. So we go down to the shore and we dip our toes in, and, you know, I have a camera back here so we can get a selfie with us and our toes. Maybe you can include that if you can find it. And just after we take the selfie, this lady comes running up to us and she says, like, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're just taking a picture here." And she's like, "Don't you know there's these snakes, cottonmouth snakes that are right down here in the rocks?"
Oh no, wait, they're water moccasins.
Water moccasins, okay. And she's like, that's where they live on these rocks, near the water, and they're super dangerous. We're like, oh, oops. Well, we got the picture though. So, and that was while we were having.
So we don't have to take a selfie with a bear now because we got our dangerous selfie down.
Yep. And that was just awesome for me, just discovering all the new places. And all the little back roads and seeing so many little towns that you've never heard of. We stopped at an old Dairy Queen. I couldn't even tell you what state that might have been North Carolina too. But we stopped at an old Dairy Queen that was like the original one from like back in the 40s or 50s. It was like a stand. So it didn't even have a sit down restaurant. It was just like the walk up Dairy Queen. It was really cute. I could see it didn't leave an impression on you.
Was that a Dairy Queen? I thought it was just like a generic.
No.
Oh.
No, it was a Dairy Queen.
I guess that was lost on me.
Yeah, it was. Must have been one of the. I mean, it's probably not the original, but it was definitely one of the old ones. It was just a walk up, like dessert stand, and just seeing all this cool stuff that like you don't know about, and it's just fun to discover around every corner. You never know what you're going to see. So yeah, awesome.
Yep. So thank you for listening to all of our mini travel tips. It helps to have a spontaneous, adventurous type of mindset before setting out on one of these things. It helps when things tend to go wrong, as they always will, then you just can kind of like, oh, it's okay. It's not like planned out to the minute, so... That's okay when things don't go quite well.
Yeah. We hope this inspires some of you to get out and take your own road trips. And those that have taken road trips, tell us about them in the comments. We love hearing what other people did on their trips and maybe share a tip or two that other people can see.
Yeah, what do you think makes a good road trip?
If you have a really good tip, we'll pin it to the top so other people can see your tips. And let us know some of the best places in America that you've discovered on road trips. That's what I would really love to hear, because we have a lot more road trips planned in our future. So we would love tips on, especially the Northeast. The Northeast is the next thing on our bucket list. So we would love to hear about different out-of-the-way places that you've discovered in the Northeast.
What parts in the Northeast would you most like to explore?
The whole shebang.
Yeah, like it's totally unknown to me.
Yeah, I don't think I've been north of New York. So we've both been now to all of the lower 48 except those 7 or 8 states that form the Northeast.
The New England area.
That's the only section of the lower 48 we haven't been to. She's also done Hawaii, which I haven't done. Neither of us have done Alaska. Maybe we'll do that someday. Especially since it's right next to Hawaii, when you see on the maps in school. Remember on the maps in school?
It's easy to go from one place to the other.
When I was a kid, I always thought Alaska and Hawaii were next to each other because when they show you the maps in your textbooks, there's the lower 48, and then they have Alaska and Hawaii, as like little islands all together.
Did you really?
Yeah, so I just thought, they must be like near each other. It's funny that one's so warm and one's so cold.
You don't realize how big Alaska is until it's superimposed on the lower 48. It stretches all the way from the west coast to the east coast. It's just so enormous.
And did you know that you can see Russia from there?
You can. On a certain island in Alaska, you can see Russia. You can
see it if you're on Sarah Palin's front porch.
Did you know that you can even walk to Alaska? There's a certain area between the two islands that freezes over in the winter, and you can actually walk from Russia to Alaska.
I think I've heard that. I think I've heard that from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming along on another edition of the Little Podcast on the Prairie. And we want to remind you to always take the old roads. All right. God bless and have a wonderful day.